Hi everyone, my name is Aleisha Bailey from CURINAM. Welcome to this week's episode of Tax Tips. So let's talk about what record keeping is. This is about keeping the physical or soft copy of invoices, bills, bank statements together in an appropriate fashion so that there's easy filing, as well as keeping your accounts up to date. Well, what exactly does that mean? It means that you should have a central location where your invoices are, your bank statements are, and all the bills. Now, what bills? Because that's where the tricky part comes in. What bills do you need to have on record? Well, any bill that has a direct correlation or direct relationship with your business. So we're talking about bills for purchases of goods, as well as for stationery, your rental agreement, and your rental invoices, as well as any meals and entertainment that have a direct relationship with your business. But a lot of us right now, we're working from remote. So how does that affect me? Well, I'm sure that because you're working from home now, there is increased water, there is increased electricity, you probably had to step up your internet, and of course you have to separate a section in your house for your office. All of that needs to be kept on record because all of that, a portion of it, is actually tax deductible. For the persons who are probably partners or you're a sole trader, there are several things that you need to consider. Every time you go to that gas station, you need to get a bill because you're probably using your vehicle to do business, which means a portion of that is directly related to your business. So what about the car? Same thing. You're using your car for business, a portion of that is actually deductible. And even the value of the car or what you actually purchased it for, that is actually tax deductible. There's quite a few things. So what I'd suggest is that you do get expert advice because there's a lot of things that we sometimes miss out. Besides from the utilities, we're talking about simple things as going on a business run and you have to park your car somewhere in New Kingston and pay for that. That $200, that is a deduction. And let's consider this because might be you're saying $200, does it add up? Yes, it does. After you make $1.5 million, there's about 33% of your income that either goes to NIS, NHT, education tax, or income tax. So let's start considering $33 of every $100 that you spend actually goes back somewhere. You don't collect that. You're not supposed to have it at the end of the year. But my business isn't making any money. The government allows you to carry over tax losses to the next year. And what does that mean? That means that even though I made a loss this year, I can actually get that as a deduction from my profit the next year. Now, if we don't have that on record, how can we file that and claim the benefit? Now for companies, it's a bit different. Remember, you may be a director of a company, but the company itself is a separate entity. What does that mean? The car that we spoke about, that needs to be in the company's name. The rental agreement, let's try to get that in the company's name because at the end of the day, you collect a salary and you collect a director's fee from the company. But the company has its own expenses. And once it is that you have incurred an expense that directly relates to the company itself, the company is the one who files it, not you. So let's try to make sure that all the bills that need to be in the company's name are in the company's name because let's say that it actually gets a bit tricky. When you get to the point of GCT, you'll realize that unless it is that these expenses are in the company's name, you can't claim that. And we're talking about 15% that you'll expense and put on your P&L versus being able to deduct from all that income, that sales tax that goes on your income. It gets a bit tricky, but at some point in time, we'll cover that if you're interested, which you can comment below and we will actually go through it if we get the right feedback. But let's get back on track. When it comes to the company is a separate entity from you, the director. So how you get income is either through your salary or through director's fees. So it's very important that expenses that are for the company are in the company's name. Of course, there are expenses that are going to come in your name. Let's say the same parking lot. You might have gone to drop off some documents for the company and they might have put it in your name. That's okay. But things, especially when they're long term, they need to be in the company's name because there are tax implications for it. We've talked about the fact of the physical records and everything that you need to keep. But how do I keep this in an appropriate manner for filing? Well, I always suggest there's a few small apps that you can use. There's Waves, there's QuickBooks, and there's the good old Excel. As an accountant, I've seen several persons who are able to maintain their records quite well in Excel. And come on, it's pretty easy for a lot of persons to check and balance. So what you can do is that you can create Excel sheets, might be one for petty cash or your cash transactions, one for your banking transactions, and then you can compile that information on another sheet. Of course, guys, the banks now allow you to extract your bank statements in Excel. So I suggest extracting the bank statements in Excel, and you can add a column to identify the purpose of that transaction. And that's really good because sometimes there are transactions in there that were not actually income. Might be you got a transfer from a friend or a family member to do some specific transactions. Imagine you passing that over to your accountant and they may not actually know. And we're talking about a transaction from January. We're in next year, January. How are we going to be able to identify the fact that that transaction was not actually business? And just to emphasize, you can get tax audited, and it's your job to actually prove to the government whether or not a transaction was business or not, and they'll need to see the supporting documents. So I suggest, as much as possible, get those things in order. I hope you found this information useful. You can comment below if there's anything that you'd like us to cover in the future, or you can give us a call for expert advice. In the meantime, follow us on all our social media platforms. Bye!